All right, it's technically live right now, but I won't start talking officially until it goes live on the other page so I can mute it.
Do they see your screen, my screen, or both screens simultaneously?
Oh, they see. No, so if I talk, then it's on me. If you talk, it's on you.
Okay.
So it censors. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to my 8:15 p.m. Wednesday night live stream. Today I have the very fantastic Riccardo Bosi. Now, for those who don't know who Riccardo Bosi is, I have information about him in the description box below, but Riccardo is an author, an award-winning speaker, a strategic and operational leader. I'm getting this information from his website, an innovator with a record of achievements in private and public sectors, domestically and internationally, with extensive experience creating new and developing existing organizations. It's quite a biography you have there. Say hello.
Hey, dear, great to see you. Thank you for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. I was very annoyed that my friend Tim Wilms got you first, but I still have an exclusive because I've gotten you now after the disillusionment, or whatever the words you want to use, of the Australian Conservatives. So I find that pretty interesting. So we'll also delve into that.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about with the resurgence of the Conservatives. The party might be gone, the leader might be gone, but the movement is very, very strong. But we'll talk about that later.
Yes, well, I am extremely pleased to have you. Let me just go. I've got something else I'm supposed to do. Okay, so sorry, I'm just looking at everything that I have to do. All right, let's begin with a little bit of your history. So you began, you're much like me, you are a first-generation Australian. So you came here from Italy, correct?
No, I was born here, but my folks came out. Yeah, folks came out in 1951. A couple of teenagers on board the ship. They met on board the ship and got to like each other a bit, I guess. But nothing happened, of course, not in those days. My father's family disembarked in Melbourne. My mother's family disembarked in Sydney. And so they lost contact with each other. It was a great story how they got together, though, because my mother wanted to get in contact with my father, but it wasn't the done thing for a girl to write to a boy saying, hey, this is me, I'm looking for you, and put it in the personals. It just wasn't done. So her mother said, I'll tell you what, you liked his sister, didn't you? And she said, yes. I said, okay. Why don't we put a personal ad in that Livia is looking for Renata, and we came on this ship, and let's see if we can get a catch. So they put the ad in the paper and heard nothing at all. And then one day, my father's mother was peeling potatoes on old newspapers, as you tend to do, and she's reading the personal items as she's peeling the spuds, and she saw the ad, which was now very old because it was just an ad in an old newspaper and a stack of papers. And she called out to my father's sister Renata and said, "Hey, look, Livia's looking for you. Do you remember Livia?" And they said yes. And so they started communicating, and Dad would throw one line down the bottom, "Ciao from me." And slowly his section of the letter got longer. Renata's section of the letter got shorter until he was writing to her, and Renata would say, "Hi, ciao from Renata." He eventually moved up to Sydney, and the rest is history. They were married, and they're quite remarkable people because they arrived with barely a word of English between them in 51, before the decade was out, and that was just a couple of teenagers. Before the decade was out, they were married, had their first child, and had started the first non-English language radio program in the country. And this was as a commercial venture. They didn't have government assistance in those days. And
as well, we shouldn't now, perhaps.
Say again?
There's an argument that we still shouldn't now.
Well, there you go. And her English was BBC perfect. We've still got the tapes from her original.
Oh, wow.
Her original tapes, yeah. And they do it bilingually, English and Italian. So the purpose was to help the new Australians, as they were then called, to integrate as quickly as possible. So to be news and current affairs and music in English and Italian to help them settle in as quickly as possible. And they went on to have 8 kids, in fact, and then... 8 kids, yeah. Good Italian Catholics.
Yes, you are.
And my father, well, they were both knighted for their contribution to the Italians in Australia. My father was made a commendatore in the Order of Merit, which is like a knight commander. and my mother a cavaliere, which is a knight in the Order of Merit. So they came from nothing, worked hard like the old migrants did, worked hard, helped build the country and did well.
That's so good. Where do you sit in the 8 kids?
Second born, first boy.
Oh, wow.
So privileged position. The sister she had to cut the path and I just cruised behind her.
You have white privilege, Italian privilege.
Male privilege.
You're everything the left hates.
Absolutely.
You're technically ethnic. You're a first generation Australian like me. You're self-made. You're bilingual, but you're a white straight Christian male. Death be upon you.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. That's how retarded they are. Have you ever had any dealings with leftism or the Marxist agenda or anything like that? Have you sort of come, now that you're in this political space, because you're kind of new to it, I would think. I don't know. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have most recently. It was during the New South Wales state election. I was handing out how to vote cards for one of my friends who was running as a candidate for a lower house seat. And by coincidence, the Labor candidate was there. And I like old Labor. Old Labor are great. I've got no problem with them because they genuinely care for the workers. And this guy thought that the Labor Party was still old Labor. And we started talking quite amicably enough, I guess, about Labor policies. And I started rattling off a few things and to do with full-term abortion because Emily's List is that group in the ALP headed up by people like Penny Wong and Tanya Plibersek and a bunch of others. Julie Gillard was a member. And their goal is full-term abortion on demand, Australia-wide, publicly funded, and they're doing it through the states. And I started mentioning things like that to him, and he was so horrified that he literally staggered back and wandered off and didn't come back for the rest of the day. He was so unaware that the Labor Party that he thought he was supporting wasn't. It had become something else.
He's a conservative leftist, I suppose.
He's a small C conservative, and that's they're the sort of people that we attract anyway, because we attract union organisers from Newcastle, we attract wealthy business people from the North Shore, because we're just small C conservative. We sit smack bang in the middle of what's good for Australia and Australians. Left, right, up, down, it's just all nonsense. It's divisive. And we're just in the middle and we sit there and we know what's right and wrong.
Yeah, well, that's I'm still learning things today. I'm still learning things in my course that I'm doing, but I only just realized that, and this will probably sound stupid, I should probably not admit it on camera, but I only just realized that you can have conservatives on the left and conservatives on the right, but the conservatives on the left are the old school ones that want to conserve what leftism was in the past. And so the man you were talking to was an old school leftist conservative, which sounds odd now. Like those two things don't even sound like they belong together, those two words. So you really disheartened him, it sounds. You red-pilled him.
Well, there's a few red pills got to go around because Newcastle and Wollongong are ripe for us, and everything west of the dividing range is as well. Because when you list out all our policies, and they didn't get a good run during the election, but I was speaking recently up in Newcastle, and at the back of the room was an old gentleman, and he came up at the end. He said, "Can you sign my Australian Conservatives T-shirt, please?" And I said, "Sure." And he told me his story. He's an ex-cop. He's a union organizer, and he so loved what I said because, as I said, it's smack bang in the middle. What's good for the country? He said, "I'm with you. I'm with you." And this is Labor. And then in the same room, I had business people, self-made businessmen, entrepreneurs, and they came up and shook my hand just as enthusiastically because they knew that what I was saying was exactly what was good for them, what was good for the workers, what's good for the country.
It's funny because, yeah, if people just sort of sit and listen and then they go, ooh, let's listen to what this person has to say. Sometimes people don't say things that are good for people. They say things that just are. And I believe that sometimes there are misinterpreted facts on that side, misinterpreted facts on the right, and then there just is. And I believe that a lot of the things you say just are, meaning that they're just true. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I keep telling our people. We don't need to pander to a particular interest group. We don't need to pander to sectarian interests. All we need to do is tell the truth. because when the population of Australia, when the voters realise what's been done in their name and what they are funding, they'll be horrified. It'll be real pitches and pitchforks and torch time as they storm the castle. Because it's the more I've got into this, the more appalling the facts are about what's being done in their name. And unfortunately, most voters think, oh well, the politicians, they know what's best for us. Well, they don't. They're nothing special. And the voters need to, as you say, be red pilled, and there's a lot of red pilling to do.
Yeah,
and learn that without the voters' vote and without the voters' money, Scott Morrison, Albanese, Di Natale, all of them, they're nothing special. In fact, they are nothing. In an interview just last week, I mentioned a clip from the movie A Bug's Life.
I love that movie.
Well, there you go. See, the politicians are like the grasshoppers. They turn up and the ants have to give them food, otherwise the grasshoppers are nasty to them. But at the end, the grasshoppers are confronted with the reality that the ants find out that they are stronger than the grasshoppers, and the grasshoppers need the ants, but not the other way around. See, politicians need us. We don't need politicians. And the moment Australians realise that, we'll throw them out. And we'll have a country that's run, to borrow a very good American phrase, by the people, for the people, and all the people. And that's the way it's got to be. Small government, do what government must do, because we do need government, obviously.
Yes.
Get out of everyone's life as much as possible and protect some fundamentals about the country. Once Australians get that, we'll stay in power forever. And I can promise you this, I don't know how long it'll take, but there'll be a conservative, small c conservative government running this country, and the extremes and the Liberal Party, the Labor Party, the Greens, they won't even get a look in.
Well, I'm gunning for that day. I'll help you in whatever way I can.
We're gonna need it.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. I love hearing you say that. I really hope that's true. Another movie that would be really interesting for your analogy for future reference is the opposing movie of the time. You know how it was Warner Brothers versus Disney for a long time? Then the movie Ants came out at the same time as Bug's Life. Do you remember Ants?
Yes, I do.
And it's like socialism, and how they're trying to create, oh, that's a soldier, that's a worker, that's a soldier, that's a worker. And then there's that one guy that wants to marry the princess of the queen, the princess person, the queen aunt's baby, daughter, whatever. And they're trying to create, it's like eugenics, and they're trying to create a master race. But then the people who are weaker, the other ants, end up rising above. Like, that's so the left. Like right now, don't you reckon that's so accurate?
Yeah, it is very similar. It is very much the case. And the power are overreaching. They're so confident and so cocky, and believe they can do anything. And they have succeeded quite dramatically in Europe. They've succeeded to a lesser degree in the US, but thank God for Trump, because Trump has not only stopped it, he's turned it around. I mean, Trump should have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 3 times over already.
Yeah, but he won't, because that's a shady organization. Why the hell did bloody Barack Obama get it when he's just dog? Sorry. That was the worst English. But
that's okay. Everyone understood it. But it was almost, what they were saying was, we control the planet. You have nothing to say anymore. And that's what the message is. And that's what they do. Guys understand this, girls less so. You walk into a bar, you pick the biggest bloke there, and you drop him with one punch, and everybody leaves you alone after that. And what they're doing is, and Israel Folau, for example, is an example. We're going to take you down. They have to drag him down. If one wins, then they start to lose. And that's why they are terrified. And who was it? Alan Joyce, the chief executive of Qantas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, somebody called him the gay leprechaun. I don't know if that's appropriate. That's just unhelpful to call somebody a gay leprechaun. But he said that he had nothing to do with the removal of Folau. And that might be true, and there's no evidence that he did, and that must be said. However, I don't trust him. I don't believe him. I just don't believe him.
Neither.
Because the chief executive, the chair of Rugby Australia let slip that had they not sacked him, they would have no sponsors. Now, here's one of the interesting facts about that. First of all, he let the cat out of the bag. The sponsors weren't going to tolerate it. More importantly, New South Wales state government and the federal government are sponsors of Rugby Australia. So here we have the Australian government funding an organisation and telling it, allegedly, to sack one of its people because it said something it didn't like. Now, which German fascist organisation does that sound like to you?
Nazis.
So they have to beat Folau, and unfortunately they won't.
That's because the Australian Christian lobby got in there, and I've actually tried to get Israel Folau on my channel. It's very difficult. So if you have the connection, please let me know. But
it's all right. The ACL got in, which was great. But it wasn't just the ACL. They just picked up the cudgel after GoFundMe dropped him. And that was a strategic error on their part. I just laughed when I heard they dumped him because I knew what would happen.
Yes, that's the thing. The left are really stupid, and they're not always stupid. I can give credit to the left where credit is due. I've done it before, but they really are so moronic to think that by getting rid of that scenario that we wouldn't somehow champion the cause in another way. And then they bitch and moan, oh well, there are kids with cancer and this and that. Why this? Well, then why aren't you giving to those causes that you're claiming? You know, like they're trying to make us look like the bad guys for championing the cause of Christian rights in Australia, or for even just get rid of the religious aspect, just freedom of speech.
And that's it. It's not about, it started as a religious thing, but it's not now, it's freedom of speech. And the country is coming to realise that, guess what? If they're going to take down Folau, and they made a stupid mistake because they took down Sonia Kruger for just asking a question. They
Kerry Ann Kennelly, just for saying that Aboriginal men happen to do what they do to women in their own. That became unnecessarily, oh, she's a racist. I had Jacinta Price talking about that last week. YouTube getting rid of Christian conservatives. It's just the mistake keeps repeating and they keep losing.
And they took on a rugby player because Australians love their sport. These things about Australia, apart from the fact we love our sport. And look, we'll even tolerate the odd swing and a miss behind the run of play as long as it doesn't get out of hand. But what really gets Australians riled when it's not fair. And they took the powers took on Folau, and Australians went, no, you don't. We like this bloke. He's a straight shooter, and you're hurting somebody that we like. And that was a bad mistake all around. I mean, this is beautifully scripted. If you wanted to script the collapse, the beginning of the end of the globalists and the left and all the other threats that we face as a civilization, you couldn't have scripted better. This is the beginning of the end. They are going to lose. And arguments about, and you mentioned the Aboriginal issue. Let's talk about one for a second. That's complete nonsense. The constitutional recognition of the Aborigines. Now, give me a break, as if that's a priority. They are beating and raping their children and women in Central Australia. There are babies with venereal disease. Yeah. Nobody in the press is talking about it. Even our alleged, conservative commentators, except for one young guy up in Northern Territory. I can't remember his name. He's a great reporter. And to give credit where credit's due, Bolt gives him air.
Oh, good.
But the Aborigines in Central Australia, they're raping and beating their kids and women. Not a word. And in fact, here's one for you. The previous Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Nigel Scullion, was not once interviewed by any media. Not once. All you ever saw him doing was sit there, talk about reconciliation. Now, why would the Minister for Indigenous Affairs not once be put up against the wall and asked a question about his portfolio?
Because he's pandering.
Well, it's a good question. I'd like to find out the answer one day.
You know something, or you're alluding to something behind the scenes that's a conspiracy theory, but maybe a fact.
Well, I haven't got my tinfoil hat on, so it can't be a conspiracy theory.
Oh, okay. Well, I love this rabbit hole we've gone down. But just before we completely fall in the rabbit hole, just what made you personally become interested in politics, in Australian politics? And what do you think is the future of Australia? You've already alluded to the fact that it's evident that the left is going to have to lose. That's just an inevitability. But why are you in politics now when you have such a prolific, illustrious career behind you and you could do anything?
Yeah, good question.
I know.
Started when I was a kid. Mum and Dad loved politics, and so for us, an election was more exciting than a grand final. And I know that's a cardinal sin in Australia. I get that. So apologies to all the sports fans out there, but for us, it was just exciting to watch the ebb and flow of politics. I was always interested in politics. What got me active in politics is a different matter, and it was my experience with the family court. Now, this is a common story for men. Previous wife decided she was going to leave, and I thought, okay, come back if you want to come back, go if you want to go, but make sure that it's a 50-50 proposition with our son. Sure. That didn't happen. And the short version is I had a look behind the scenes and I saw what I went through, which was just extraordinarily painful. And if you want to know what it's like having your son taken from you by the state, it's like having your soul ripped out. And so I fought like many others. And once I realized that the family court was as bad as it was, I realized that Australia wasn't the country I thought it was. And then that gave me, once I looked behind the curtain there, I saw many other areas that I just had to get active in and participate in. Because by that stage, I'd already retired from the army. But as I've said before, I signed when I joined the army, everybody that joins the Defence Force signs a blank check that might require them to die in the course of their duty. And we're good with that. We know there are worse things than dying. And so we just kept fighting. So now I'm fighting, but in a different way, still fighting for the country, but, in a suit instead of a uniform and with a pen instead of a gun. But this is a battle that I will fight. This is a battle that I and many others will fight till our last breath.
That's very noble.
Oh, no, it's just necessary. It is just necessary, because if we don't, Australia, have a look at Venezuela, have a look at Europe, have a look at Great Britain. That's what's going to happen to us. These people are intelligent. They have an exquisite strategy, excellently executed. They've been doing it for 50, 60, 70 years now. And we can talk about that in detail if you want to. If we rest for a moment, we will lose this country, just like Venezuela, just like England, just like Europe.
I agree. I recently did an event in Mittagong, and the discussion was femininity versus or against feminism, and a lot of what we discussed was the fact that men commit suicide at a much larger rate than women, and that men suffer a lot because of this Marxist agenda, because of this infiltration of feminism, which creates these sort of substitute mediocre shittier version of men, but there are women doing the role, and women are encouraging other women to be single parents, to rip families apart, to grab their boys and to poison their sons against their fathers, and it really infuriates me, and it makes me angry, and it makes me cry. And so when I say I'm an anti-feminist, you have no idea how much hate the restaurant got for holding the event regarding that issue. So the fact that you are yet another example, you're like the 10th person I've heard in a matter of 6 months who has had a story about his child being taken away from him because of a stupid bitch. And I know that, like, I'm sorry, I'm getting angry about it, so I'll stop talking about it.
Yeah, the tragedy here is there's a couple of things I'll address here. 21 men suicide every week as a result of family law. 21, that's 3 a day. Think about that. And you never hear that on the news because that's the agenda. Then we have the accusation of toxic masculinity. Well, guess what? Some guys can be complete jerks. And guess what? Guys know that. We know that. We know there's a group of men at the extreme that we have nothing to do with. They think they're alpha males. We just know they're jerks. But there's the balance side. There's also toxic femininity as well, and they're on the extreme other end. And there's this silly screaming match, and normal people are stuck in the middle watching this insanity, and we're paying the price. Not for long. This will change. This will change.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about that. So you got into politics initially due to your son, which is an unfortunate circumstance, but it's a happy ending just for everyone. who wants to know. And so you felt like you could implement something. Also, you said something about Julia Gillard off air. Can you say that? I think everyone needs to know. That was interesting.
Oh, that in family law there is no such thing as perjury anymore.
That's ridiculous, and you need to bring it back because that only. Oh, it just went offline. Okay. All right, let's go to the chat because he's no longer on air. All right, that's weird. I'll just call him. That's odd. Hang on. Does anyone want to super chat me a question? All right, hang on. That's so weird. He just went offline. I should have Clementine Ford on. She won't come on. I'm literally by myself. All right, hang on. He probably didn't charge. I bet you because the laptop he's using is his son's. Yeah, let me just call him. That's funny. How good is Riccardo Bosi, guys? Like, this man, him and maybe Anning are like fantastic. I'm so sick and tired of the feminist cause and the damage it has done and continues to do with it. Yeah, I know. It's pretty shitty. I'm just gonna call him. It's so funny.
Back on.
Oh, you're back on. I was saying to the chat, any money he didn't charge up the laptop and he forgot to like stick the battery charger in.
No, I think the globalists decided to shut us down because we're getting too close. We're getting too close to the truth here. They can't have this come out.
I know.
Anyway, what I was saying was, yeah, there were laws changed that there's no perjury in family law anymore. So you can imagine what anybody and everybody can say. So yeah, there you go. It's bad law. It's awful.
And what Gillard? So keep women out of politics. No, I'm just kidding.
Keep Fabians out of politics would be a good start.
Yeah.
Fabians and Emily's listers.
Very true. Okay, so what do you believe Australia needs to? I mean, it's a long list, but what are the like maybe 4 or 5 main policies, or what are the 5 things that you think should be fixed, like without question? Obviously, family law is one. Obviously, you feel very passionately about that. What else?
Well, can we just go one layer below that? What Australians need to do to save the country? Trump.
Yeah, sort of what might have meant. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. See, the US has got Trump, and the US loves people like Trump. And I've worked with the US Special Forces around the world. They're great guys. I love them to bits. But we're really very different. Australia wouldn't respond well to a Trump. US does. We don't. The only way Australia can turn this around, and this is the foundational work that we must do.
With the society of who gives a fuck, and like people talk like that. I don't really swear, but like people talk like that,
What we've got to do, and this is the long, slow process, is we've got to reveal the truth to Australians and get them to realise that they have to take control. The only way this is fixed is each and every one of us gets sufficiently interested and motivated to fix the problem. And we're getting there slowly. And this will take us a long time to do it. The Folau issue has raised something, and as each one of these issues comes up, it'll start to hit home. The transgender movement. Now, this is just an example of waking up to what's going on. Now, the transgender people. I've got a transgender friend.
Same.
And
go ahead.
As a group, they suicide higher than the average. And then once they get their surgery, the rate of suicide is even higher still. So
Yes.
that tells you it's got nothing to do with their bits and pieces. It's got to do with psychology. Now, we're being told a whole bunch of nonsense about the nature of sex, and children are now being groomed by pedos under the guise of, oh, we're protecting transgender children. I can tell you what's going to get Australians really cranky. Maybe not Victoria, because down there, I've got to tell you, I don't know what they put in the water in Victoria, but in Victoria, a child can go to the teacher at school and say, I think I'm a girl today. And they can recommend that child to a doctor, and neither the school nor the doctor has to tell the parents. Now, since when does a government have control over a child other than the parent? Since when does a doctor, and so what, they're a doctor, so what? That used to be a respected profession. Not anymore. They just punch pills out. And since when was the law passed that a teacher and a doctor can take control of your child? And when the country realizes what's going on slowly, it'll start to turn around. So the only solution, there are policies we've got to change, without a doubt. But the long-term solution and the only solution that's going to work is Australians waking up. And the good news is all we have to do is tell them the truth, because they're not getting the truth from the media. The mainstream media on the left, you expect the left to tell lies because that's what they do.
Well, of course.
What concerns me is the alleged conservative media. They're like Judas goats. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of a Judas goat. When you want to move sheep through the slaughterhouse, you get the lead animal, which is the goat, and the sheep will follow the Judas goat. Now, the goat itself never gets its throat slit. It just walks straight through, and all the sheep go into the slaughterhouse, and they're slaughtered. And that's what the conservative media in Australia are like. Now, I'm not saying they're doing this wittingly, but they pretend that everything's okay. And it's anything but okay. But there's a whole range of subjects they won't touch. Full-term abortion is one. I got told to shut up about it because, you don't talk about that. And I said, why not? It's not a Christian issue. This is just decency.
It just is.
Telling women that they're allowed to treat their children up to and including the moment of birth like medical waste. In fact, just recently, there was another case, and back to Victoria, in 2009, where full-term abortion is legal, as it is in Tasmania and Queensland. In 2009, 42 babies survived their abortion and were left to cry and die in a bucket.
Far out.
And it's still happening. Now, how many in 2010? We don't know. Why? The government doesn't take stats anymore. Now, this is a government that takes stats on everything, but the one thing they don't want a discussion on. And you can thank Labor Party and Emily's List and Penny Wong and Tanya Plibersek. And nobody will raise this. Nobody. Euthanasia. Here's another one. Euthanasia. There's a case in, where is it? Somewhere in Europe. I didn't get a chance to finish the article. Quadriplegic. He sleeps, he wakes up, he breathes on his own. He has been directed by a court that he must die. They're going to stop feeding him and he will starve to death over 14 days. And when this was explained to his apparently useless body, he cried. He's obviously conscious and aware. What they are doing is undermining the sanctity, what we as Christians might call the sanctity of life. And they talk about the right to life, but not for babies and not for old people. They want to dismantle an acceptance that life is sacred. Because if they can take your life, then your liberty and your property is up for grabs. And they are convincing us that we are allowed to do that. They are making us our own warders. It's breathtakingly exquisite as a strategy. It's nasty. It's bad. At least the Nazis turned up with guns. These guys are persuading our children and our mothers what they can and can't do with their bodies and their babies, and it's insane.
You actually made me a bit teary. I didn't know that about the paralyzed, the quadriplegic. But there's many more stories, by the way. I'm sure you know that.
Of course.
Yeah, it's in Victoria where I am. I didn't know that they were doing post abortions. I did know that they were doing full term. Are you pro-life the whole way, like from point of conception towards?
Life starts at conception.
Yes, I agree. I'm just asking because a lot of some people are pro-life up until maybe where the heart starts to beat, which is the 3rd, 4th week. So anything before that, some people are like, oh, well, maybe before is okay. But you're not.
And then you've got another issue, free speech.
Yes, that's
our courageous Prime Minister, Silent Scott. I love calling Silent Scott because that's all he is. He never speaks about anything controversial. There was a newspaper headline today in the Australian trumpeting Silent Scott's, successor, the G20. He's working with against the tech giants. to shut down, nastiness. And I went, really? See, what people have to realise about Silent Scott Morrison, someone like him doesn't persuade anybody at the G20. He's given something that he can trumpet as a victory. And he was given this alleged victory over the tech giants to shut down hate speech. But what it means is he's going to shut down conservative speech, not hate speech.
Yeah.
Not one Muslim has been dragged up for saying behead those who insult the Prophet, and yet Folau gets the runaround. And what does our Silent Scott say? Well, I think this issue's had enough oxygen. Like, that's enough on free speech. He shut down 4chan and 8chan. Now, some of your listeners will know who 4chan and 8chan are. It's the wild west of the internet.
Yeah.
And it's quite nasty in there, but that's free speech. That's the nature of it. But he shut them down, and a case can be made. I disagree with it, but a case can be made to do that. But under cover of 4chan and 8chan's banning, they also shut down BitChute, which is the YouTube alternative.
I use it too. Like, I have to use, this is all because of Brenton Tarrant.
No, it's all because the government is doing what it's told.
Of course.
It's shutting down.
They're being puppeted.
That's it. They'll give a plausible excuse, and people think, oh, yeah, fair enough. No, not at all. Silent Scott Morrison wants all of us silent, but us meaning conservatives, us meaning anybody that isn't on the agenda.
He's supposed to be one of us. He's supposed to be Christian conservative. I said supposed. I know. Relax, dude. I'm with it. I'm just saying he's weird because he goes to church on Sundays. It's odd. I wouldn't expect that from a Christian, but there are shitty Christians.
Well, I don't know whether he's dishonest, or whether he's just naive, or whether he's an imbecile, or whether he's just lazy. I don't know. All I know is don't look at what they say, look at what they do. And Silent Scott Morrison is shutting down free speech in this country.
Yes, he is.
And that's the fact. Just look at what they do. Don't listen to what they say. What they say is not relevant. Their actions speak louder than words.
Do you have a negative opinion of, I forgot her name, the Prime Minister of New Zealand? What the hell's her name? Jacinta
Ardern.
What was it?
Jacinta Ardern.
Yeah. What do you reckon about her? I think she's a moron. Do you agree?
Well, was it Lisa Wilkinson said she should be our Prime Minister? Lisa
Wilkinson is the queen of the morons.
Well, I'll tell you what, you won't get any arguments from me. Jacinta Ardern is just another socialist stooge.
Yeah.
Absolute socialist stooge. And I love New Zealanders, and I love New Zealand. I've worked with a lot of Kiwis, great people. I hope they wake up and throw her out. And she was only put into power by Winston Peters, alleged conservative who was the kingmaker at that election, and he could have put the conservatives in, but he didn't. He put Jacinta Ardern in. I wonder what that deal comprised. Yeah,
well, the second a bunch of people tragically, of course, very tragically get murdered, she capitulates completely to that religion and does a call to prayer. Like, how does that solve anything? It's really unbelievable. Women, and I know it sounds like I'm going against my own gender. I've already been called a gender traitor, so I don't really care. Women really do act on emotion, and that just does nothing. You have to be logical about these things. That's not going to fix what happened.
There was no emotion there. That wasn't emotion. That was absolutely cold and calculating. Because a week later, 135 Christians were killed. Did we hear anything from Jacinta? Did we hear anything from Silent Scott?
Easter worshippers.
Easter worshippers die. That was the headline, Oh, okay. So well done, Silent Scott Morrison. Well done, Jacinta. They're shutting us down. They know what they're doing. This is not an accident. This is not a mistake.
No.
It's part of the plan. If you stand back long enough and look at it, you'll see the tectonic plates shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on. So in terms of answering your question, what policies should we have? Educate the people until they start throwing the grasshoppers out. The ants need to link arms and force out Scott Morrison and Albanese and every one of those people down in Canberra, and put in a small team of people who speak the truth and do what they are paid to do, which is do what they're allowed to do under the Constitution. Now, there's an idea. How about they stick to what they can do under the Constitution?
Well, the thing is, we're operating under a different constitution. I had someone named Tim Dwyer on my channel who's become a friend and a mentor of mine, and he was part of the South Australian faction of the Fraser Anning Conservative Party. And on my channel, he said that the original annotated version of the constitution is not the constitution we're operating under. We're operating under a different one, a completely diluted, just a different one. It's almost basically all of our laws at this stage are completely unlawful because they're not based on the original constitution, which says that the people are the powerful ones, and it's the only constitution apparently in the Western world that gives that much power to the people. Are you you're probably already aware of what I'm talking about, but what we need to do is get rid of Marxism and leftism in the education system. I think it starts with education.
Absolutely, and that's why the ABC is so critical. Save the ABC. Love the ABC. Just sack the talking heads.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. Save the ABC and use it for what it was intended to be used for. But your discussion on the Constitution is interesting because I was talking to somebody the other day about the gay marriage vote.
Oh, the plebiscite.
It's unconstitutional, I've been told. Now, I don't know this for fact, but I was told by someone who knows, a lawyer, that by passing that law, it's unconstitutional because the word marriage is defined in the Constitution, and you cannot change one word in the Constitution without a referendum, and no referendum was taken.
Exactly.
So it's a lie. Now, if Australia wants gay marriage, great. Let's do it properly. Let's have a referendum, not some dodgy postal vote where there was evidence of tampering. They boasted about it online, and there was no positive and negative side funded by the government.
No, there was a negative side. The no vote was funded, but it was considered too explicit, and so they only showed it at late night. I wrote a paper about it. It's ridiculous how much the no vote was attempted to be suppressed, and how much the gay people were saying we should burn down churches. Like, Christianity is definitely on the decline in this country. And that's another thing I think that needs to be brought back. Is Christianity, because Australia is losing its Christian heritage. Would you agree with that?
Just on that, that's really interesting. You're exactly right. They have to target Christianity specifically because the rest of their agenda doesn't work. There's a very specific agenda, and you can check out what their agenda is. Your listeners should Google the 45 goals of the Communist Party, enumerated in a book called The Naked Communist by E. Cleon Skousen. And if you go through the goals, the first 10 largely do with the US. The remainder, just tick off how many they've done. Penetrate the unions, penetrate big business, get a hold of the school teachers' unions, get a hold of the curriculum, soften the curriculum, make it a passage of a means of communicating socialist ideals, denigrate traditional marriage, denigrate traditional families, promote promiscuity, promote aberrant sexual behavior as normal, promote homosexuality. These are set goals. But key to this are the Christians. And the reason for that is we hold there to be an objective good and an objective bad because we have a God and not. So there is an objective good. Their goal is to convince everybody that it's all relative. Everything's relative. There is no objective good and bad. If there's no objective good and bad, there's no objective right and wrong. If there's no objective right and wrong, I can kill you at birth and I can kill you when you're an old man as well.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's very subtle.
The things that you do wrong and that I do wrong and all the hit pieces that we get, well, it's all relative. I did nothing wrong, lefties.
Yeah, well, they have to apply a set of standards to us that they can't apply to themselves. But that's what they do. They lie. There's a great line in the movie Apocalypse Now. And it goes like this: the bullshit piled up so fast you needed wings to stay above it. And that's what it's like dealing with the left and the media, all of them. You just can't they lie so fast that you can't counter it.
It's sickening. What is your opinion on Fraser Anning, generally speaking? Because obviously the media made out like he was, because of the two words, final solution, those two words made him a Nazi, and then his affiliation with Neil Erikson and Blair Cottrell simply because they happen to back him up. And, these are not evil boys. They just, I suppose, have made mistakes. All of these things made Fraser Anning fringe and far right. And, what is your opinion on Fraser Anning as a political leader and the party ideals in general?
Fraser Anning just reflects what a large percentage of Australians believe. There's nothing fringe about Fraser Anning at all.
No.
He's just an average guy.
Mm.
And what they want us to believe is that the 3.5 lesbians in inner city Sydney represent the whole of Australia, when they don't. They just don't.
No.
I'll give you an example just on that. Look, so finish on Fraser Anning. He reflects average Australian views. Nothing special. Even Trump likes him, so therefore, there's a feather in his cap. But let me give you an example. Clover Moore. Clover Moore wants to convince us that putting up Christmas trees in Sydney is offensive.
Oh, F off, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So no Christmas trees in Sydney because it might offend non-Christians. Well, guess what? I spent 5 years in the United Arab Emirates, and every Christmas, guess what every mall has? 3, 4, 5-story Christmas trees. And what do the local Emiratis do? They give their kids presents. Not because they believe in Christmas, but hey, it's another excuse to give kids presents. There's Christmas trees everywhere. And they're very relaxed about it. In fact, the commander, I was an advisor to the Special Operations Command in the UAE Presidential Guard. And the commander, Brigadier Obeid, great guy, he wrote a note to all the advisors because we had... they have advisors. They call us advisors now from other nations to advise their special ops, all experienced sort of men. And we had the French, the Kiwis, the Brits, the Australians, and the Americans. And he wrote a letter to us all saying, gentlemen, I appreciate this is a very important time in the Christian calendar for you, so feel free to take an extra 7 days off over the Christmas period. You know, adults aren't fussed by this stuff, but Clover Moore wants to convince us that the whole of Australia should behave like her. Well, they shouldn't, because more people think like Fraser Anning than they think like Clover Moore.
Yes.
So that's a long answer to a short question.
Oh no, that's okay. I like hearing you speak, to be honest. I think you're you're a good orator. All right, well, let's get into the Australian Conservative Party.
Yep.
For whom you were the New South Wales Senate, or at least the attempt. So they're now okay, I'm just going to read a quote. Okay, so this is what Cory Bernardi said. Did you just sneeze?
Coughed.
Oh, okay. Bless you either way. All right. So the inescapable conclusion from our lack of political success, our financial position, and the re-election of a Morrison-led government is that the rationale for the creation of the Australian Conservatives is no longer valid. No doubt this will come as a disappointment to those who have shown so much support over the past 2 years. So what are your thoughts on that sentiment, and what is the future of Australian conservatism, generally speaking?
Yeah, the statement, how can I say this politely? It's wrong.
Okay, fair enough.
It's wrong. There are 1,000 reasons why we still need to exist. Look, we lost the election, and it was an ignominious defeat. It was a failure of leadership because we had great policies, great candidates, great volunteers, and we lost. So there you go. You point the finger at the leader and say, you messed up. And that's the job of a leader, to take it on the chin. Simple as that. Plenty of blame to go around. You can blame circumstances. No, we lost. End of story. Now, is there still room for a conservative force in Australia? You bet. For all the reasons we've already been talking about, because no other party is speaking about those issues which are fundamental to the success of this nation. None of them are. They're accepting Paris Agreement. They're not building more coal-fired power stations. They're not building dams. They're not protecting kids. They're not protecting old people. They're not protecting veterans. They're not protecting Christians. They're doing nothing. No. Scott Morrison's government is the same lousy government that Turnbull had. And the people will slowly understand that. It really is. So to pretend there's no conservative cause is complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Immediately after the election, I gave myself the Sunday off, slept until 7:30, which is a big sleep in for me. Next morning, straight back into it, 5 o'clock I'm up, and I'm punching out the plan for the future. Because Cory Bernardi rang around and said, look, let's take 4 weeks off and decide what we're going to do. And that's just bad leadership. You don't do that. You've got a whole army out there that needs to be told what's going on next. And so I knocked up 2 things. One was called the Next Steps Tour. And this was just for New South Wales because the other states have to look after themselves initially. But hopefully we'll be dragging together a federal party, which is the plan. But the Next Steps Tour was for myself and Sophie York, who was our #1 candidate. in the Senate, and I was the number 2, and she's fantastic. She and I are going around.
But she's not answering my freaking messages.
I think she's on holidays.
Okay.
But she'll get back to you. She's a real champion.
Okay, cool.
But so we're going around to all the electorates where we had volunteers working, and we're having a listening tour. We listen to them, what we did wrong, what we need to do right for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talk about the second thing that I wrote up, which is the plan for New South Wales. And this is a strategic plan, 3 phases over 3 years.
Mm.
And what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. At the end of those talks, every one of those members is absolutely energized and can't wait to get stuck into it. And here's the short version for your listeners. The first 3 months, phase 1, professionalize the party. We need a proper constitution, not one that says Cory Bernardi is king and everybody else can do what he says, because that's what the previous constitution said, which is just amateur hour. So sorry, Cory, but you blew it. So we're going to professionalize. We need a proper constitution. We need a full scope of policies that are real, not just comfortable ones that you can get away with, real policies. And it'll cover everything. We'll have a youth policy. We'll have an environmental policy. We'll have a social security policy, everything that a real serious professional political party has. So we're going to professionalize. That's phase 1. I'm still in the process of knocking up the plans because we were caught short because Cory pulled the plug with virtually no notice. So we've been caught on the hop a little bit. So we're going through a quiet period while the planning is being done. And I know the members are getting a bit toey, and I can understand that. And some are even leaving, and I can understand that. But what we'll do is we're going to do this so well, we're going to drag them all back. They're going to willingly come back, and many from the Liberal and many from Labor Party, and even some from the Greens will come to us because when they read the policies and see how we run the show, it's going to be different. So that's 3 months. The next 3 months, phase 2. And that's we're now going to start talking to all like-minded parties around the state and start to cooperate with them, because this fragmented group of conservatives is never going to win. So we need to cooperate. And imagine there'll be some parties that want to join us and become part of us, and that's great. There'll be some parties that just want to set up a formal coalition, which is fantastic as well, because we're going to have to work together to beat and then to win government.
Yeah. And
then phase 3, that's 6 months so far, 3 months, 3 months. Phase 3, 2 years. It's a 2-year campaign. We're starting from scratch. And it's going to be that slow process of going house to house, street to street, suburb to suburb, winning the trust of the people by introducing ourselves. And at the end of it, they're going to know who we are, they're going to like us, and they're going to trust us. So come election day in 2022, we're going to win seats, and it'll be the beginning of the end of the Liberal Party and the Labor Party. And the Liberal Party, if they're lucky, will let them be our junior partner in the coalition some way down the track.
I love it. I have a good name for you. You can call it the Dia Beltran Lemmings. No, I'm kidding.
We're already having a big bun fight over the name. We've been tossing up the name. Some people love conservative.
You have to have the word conservative for sure.
I like conservative, but apparently it's poison with the electorate. The electorate doesn't like it.
Then do something that means conservative, but that isn't that word.
Say again?
Do a word that means conservative, but don't use the word conservative. Like a different.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you can always turn it around and change the perspective of what conservative means. We want to conserve farms. We want to conserve dams. We want to conserve families. We want to conserve good things.
Yeah.
Along with conserving. But again, we're going to have a competition on that. We'll have a vote. Then we'll put it up to some marketing professionals and see what works and what doesn't. But more important than the name, which is important, but more important than that, the policies and how we run the party. The party will be transparent, consultative, and democratic. The members will have a say. And if you want an idea what it's going to look like, have a look at John Ruddock's book, Make the Liberal Party Great Again. And John Ruddock's a brilliant man. And there's a guy I'd like to see as our federal president one day. He's fantastic. In fact, if you want a good interview, get John Ruddock on your show.
Do you know him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you can hook it up.
Yeah, I'll make it happen. He's a good man.
I'll be a lobbyist for your party. I'll help you in some way.
Yeah, but he wrote a book, as I said, and it sounds like a dry political tome, but it's not. It's exciting. It's got history. It's got anecdotes, and he describes the mechanics of how you set up a modern 21st century democratic party. And we're even going to have, I really hope, we'll have primaries for our candidates and our leaders, just like the Americans do. So, if you want to stand up and do it, you do it. Because at the moment, it's all secret deals behind closed doors, this faction, that faction. If you give me this ministry, then I'll give you that. No, this will be we'll be the only party in the country with genuine transparency and consultation and democracy. and people are going to love it. It'll be like a rock concert.
That sounds so good. I'm really excited for what's to come because I get messages from people all the time. Dia, do you think that there's a chance for Australia? Dia, what's going to happen? Dia, are we down a shithole? I was just talking to some random guy last night. Yeah, for real. That's what they ask me. I get all these private messages from people because I can't always read my messages because Facebook bans me so often. But yeah, and so then these people are so concerned, and my answer is usually that the only place to go when you hit rock bottom is back up. And we're pretty close to that rock bottom, and the left will end up consuming themselves, is my opinion, because we're going to be silenced, and then eventually they'll get bored, and they're like, okay, well, we don't have Christmas anymore. We don't have Christmas trees anymore. We banned sandcastles from the beach. Who can we turn on? Oh, we can turn on our own now. So then it'll be, you know, ugly fat feminists versus pretty feminists and or whatever the hell it is. And eventually they're going to be at war, and then they'll realize how stupid they were. And the only place to go is back up. And so that's what I told him. I said, there will be a resurgence. I just don't know when it is. When do you think it is?
No, we're not going to hit rock bottom. We're already on our way back up now. We already are.
That's so good.
Yeah. No, we're in good shape. We're going to win this. We are going to win this, and they are going to lose. And it'll be an ignominious failure for them. We're going to push and fight until they run away beaten and ashamed.
I hope so.
And they're going to go back under their rocks, and we'll lift up the rocks occasionally and sweep them away. But we're taking Australia back.
I hope so.
No, you don't have to hope. You don't have to hope. It's going to happen.
Well, because I keep hearing from Christians that we're in the end times, and so that really depresses me when they say that.
Yeah, look, I'm a bit more muscular with my Christianity. Okay, when Moses was praying, Joshua was fighting. So you do the Moses bit, I'll do the Joshua bit. We'll be okay.
Yeah. But are you okay? So this is a rude question, but I know I can ask you because we've had several conversations already, and everyone watching, he is aware I'm socially retarded, so I'm allowed to ask this question. Okay. You're not really a proper Christian because you're Catholic.
I don't even know what that means. I don't understand why people hate Catholics so much. I'm not
hate Catholics. I love Catholic people, but I don't believe that the Catholic institution itself represents the best interests of Christianity and Jesus Christ.
Well, I don't think the current Pope does.
No, that I agree with too.
So I've got to agree with you. I've got some real serious questions about this guy.
He's a globalist, environmentalist. The only thing he talks about that I agree with is abortion. Otherwise, everything else I disagree with.
Yeah, no, he's a queer fish, to use an old expression. He's odd. I don't know what's going on. And look, maybe the globalists installed a pope, just like they installed Barack Obama. You know, they had a bet. The globalists were sitting around one day drinking 500-year-old scotch, and one said, "I bet you I can get a black Muslim as president." And the other guy said, "Yeah, watch this. I'm going to get an atheist as pope." And they had their little competitions to install people.
Perhaps. Anyone in the chats, if you want to send a super chat Riccardo Bosi's way, I will read out the super chat and let you guys, send super chats, please. Ask questions. They're not sending super chats. They're so mean. But someone did just ask if you are in favor of restoring penalty rates. Send super chats.
Penalty rates?
Yeah, are you for them? Are you going to restore them?
I'm a big fan of workers organising with their bosses what they want, because the organisations are so different and so varied that there should be a proper informed debate by both sides. There really should.
This isn't a question in the chat, but I assume you are against assisted suicide.
Oh, without a doubt. It's a cover for taking life.
Yeah. Because I'm pretty much, I lean no on it. I do think that the only nuanced argument for it is intense, immeasurable, unspeakable suffering. But because I'm not good at suffering through. On the weekend, I've just been sick. I've been vomiting all weekend, and I'm only better today. I'm only 100% right now. I'm not saying I wanted to die. I didn't. But the point is that I'm a sook when it comes to pain. So imagine someone going through something like 10 times harder. What would you say to that?
Okay. The problem with the argument is this:
Tell
there's
me.
no set of rules that will prevent it from being exploited by kids that want to inherit mum and dad's house, and it gets us. And let me give you an example of that.
Okay.
A long time ago, I was renting a house, and actually said to the owners, "Are you interested in selling? Because I might be interested in buying." And he, lovely old Greek couple. And they said, "We'd like to, but our daughter wants us to keep it so she can get it." And I went, "Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's a family issue. Let it go." He then developed a debilitating motor neuron disease, and his mind was as active as anything, but he just couldn't move anymore. And they wanted to sell the house, so they had the money to at least look after him in his final years. And the loving daughter convinced them not to do that so she could inherit the house. And this went on, and his last days were in pain. And he shouldn't have been put down, and he wasn't. Like a dog, he wasn't, thankfully, but he died. Now, palliative care did what it could, and the dosage of the pain goes up until the heart stops. I understand the reality of how this works, but he went out the way he wanted to go out. Anyway, she inherited the house, and she came around to do the officious inspection, and this is my house now, and the old rules are over because mum and dad let you get away with too much, and I don't know what she thought we got away with, but. And she came in, and the first thing I asked was, how's mum? Because she must be in a lot of pain. Because the husband of something like 50, 60 years has just passed. And she broke down and cried. Because she knew she inherited this house, and this house was now a millstone around her neck, a memory of the fact that her selfishness was the cause of her father's painful last years. There are no set of rules that can be written to prevent it being exploited, and it's being exploited right now overseas.
Oh, it is. I know.
So no, there are no set of rules. None.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. I was speaking to a man named Dean. He's in the chats. I think you'll meet him soon. And he says he's not for it or against it, but that he reckons the option should be there because of things that happened with his father and all that kind of stuff. My argument is, well, then why not just pump up the drugs of morphine so that they just don't feel the pain? Like,
that's what they do with the palliative care. That's the short answer what they do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about full-term abortion. It's the same argument.
I hate
you need 2 doctors to sign off on it.
Yes.
So what a young lady will do now, if a woman's pregnant, she needs support. She needs massive amounts of support. This is a huge event. So if you get 2 doctors to sign off that she's okay she's making this decision in sound mind, but it's psychologically damaging to her if she goes ahead with the birth, then they can agree to terminate the baby. Doctors, once again, these people aren't saints. They used to be, but they're not anymore. And you can get any number of doctors to sign off on anything if the price is right.
Yeah.
But this 2-doctor safety net is nonsense. Why? Because once again, in the lovely state of Victoria, a doctor down there didn't want to recommend a patient to an abortion clinic, and he was forced to do so under pain of losing his license. So can we see what the government's doing here? So they take an issue which is highly emotive and highly damaging to individuals, and they use it as a political football to advance their agenda. Instead of giving women support, they don't. And here's one last point on this. Do they think women are so stupid that they need full-term abortion because it takes them 9 months to figure out they don't want to have a baby? Now, I've got a position on when life starts, but let's say we do up to heartbeat. Let's just pick a
3 weeks.
Arbitrary time, right? 3 weeks. You think she couldn't take a morning after pill?
Yeah.
How stupid do they think women are? How stupid do they think you are?
But yeah.
There's a million things to do, but their agenda isn't health for women. Their agenda is to get women to treat their babies like medical waste. And if you can convince a country of an entire nation of women that they are able to kill their babies, the country has lost its soul. And you want to hit rock bottom? That's what rock bottom looks like.
We're already there. Yeah, you're so right.
Well, no, we're not already there, because most women, when they hear this story, and I tell this story in my political rallies, and I do it gently, and I do it as gently as I can, but they are horrified when I say, and by the way, you're paying for this. And I describe the procedure, and you're paying for it, and they are horrified. So no, we're nowhere near rock bottom. Maybe Emily's List is rock bottom. Maybe Tanya Plibersek is rock bottom. Maybe Penny Wong is rock bottom. Maybe Julia Gillard is rock bottom because they promote this.
Yeah. Well, we have another super chat. How do we reverse, this is from Joel Jamal, how do we reverse the long march through the institutions? Keep up the great work. Thank you for the money.
Education.
Coming, guys, more super chats. Yeah.
Education. It's the only thing we can do. But education through, and we've got to be intelligent through this, is a practical step. Really practical. And this is one of the policies I like from the Conservatives at the election. School vouchers. Instead of the money going to the school and the school spending the money the way it wants, they calculate how much each child, how much the government spends on each child's education. Let's just pick an easy number, right? $5,000 a year is spent on each child. So that money goes to the principal and the school, and away they go. Well, how about we do it this way? Give it to the parents, because now the parents get to choose the school. So schools that actually teach what the parents want, as opposed to gender fairy material, but maths, reading, writing, arithmetic. So you give the power to the parents, and the parents go, well, this school's lousy. Look at its NAPLAN scores. It's terrible. There's a good school. And so they turn up to the good school, but you can't do that now because you're compelled to take a school in your area, no matter how bad it is. So you give the power back to the parents. School vouchers, there's your $5,000 to cover the education of your child. Now you pick a good school, give that check to the principal. That's all it can be used for. You give that to the principal, and all of a sudden, school A, which is doing great work, has a ton more money, so they can build more facilities and teach more kids because they're doing good work. School B, that was doing lousy, loses students, loses money, and it closes down because it fails.
Yeah.
So there's a really simple, practical reason how we turn it around. Better education, primary, secondary, tertiary, all the way up the top.
That's good.
That's a simple start, but it's got to go through everywhere. Universities that don't provide a balanced and realistic education lose funding straight away. ANU refused money from the Ramsay Foundation for Western Civilization because they thought it was wrong. Yet they take money from the UAE and Qatar.
Yeah.
Now, UAE I'm pretty happy with because they're a unique country in the Middle East. But Qatar, give me a break. So they're taking money from Qatar, but they won't take money to promote Australia. ANU loses its funding. That's it. Simple as that. The country is not compelled to spend money on destroying itself. It's just so there are really simple and practical things we can do to turn it around, but we have to. Education is key. An educated population.
Yeah. So Dean McRae sent. He didn't. Dean McRae, you own 4 restaurants. You think you could have given me a bit of money with the question? As a military and now political man, how do you identify, to reciprocate, and develop loyalty?
Oh, you got to be worthy of it. You got to be worthy of it. Write the book. It's the book on leadership, and I'll tell you exactly what you're going to do to earn loyalty. And the book it's about leadership, but the book speaks to everybody and anybody because it's about being a good person. And it's as simple as that. First one, the foundation, be worthy of trust. And trust isn't some vague and woolly concept. It's really simple. Tell the truth, be competent, be measured, be candid, and be loyal.
Yeah.
So that's the first step, be worthy of trust. Second, be a person of good character. And
Dean is not either of those, and I'm just kidding.
Be a person of good character.
Yeah.
You've got to be courageous. You've got to be wise. You've got to have faith in yourself, and you've got to love your people.
Yeah.
The second pillar.
You said
competence. You got the foundation is trust. The first pillar is character. The second pillar is competent. Be competent. Know your job and know people. Know your job. Master it. There's an old saying in Special Forces, amateurs practice till they get it right. Professionals practice till they can't get it wrong.
Oh, that's clever.
So that's what you've got to do. Know your job backwards. Then know your people. Now, knowing your people, there's 2 parts of that. You've got to know your people. And here's a test I give chief executives when I'm talking to them. I say, okay, just take out a piece of paper and write down, those people that report directly to you, and it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Now write down the name of their spouse. Now write down the name of their kids. Now write down what that this individual is interested in. What's their hobby? And you can see them pausing because they don't know. So they're just elements to the economic equation. You can't do that. You've got to know that Jacko is married to Narelle. They've got 3 kids. The 3 kids are all guns at cricket, and Jacko loves fly fishing, for example. That's knowing your people. But knowing people, you've got to understand what moves them, what motivates them, how to inspire. So that's the next one. Then you've got the third one, which is invention. You've got to come up with new stuff. You've got to innovate. You've got to be clever.
Got to inspire.
You can't, hey?
Inspire.
And if you can't come up with the ideas yourself, get your people to do it. And I got some good stories about that. Then you've got the fourth pillar, which is empowerment. You got to empower your people. Give them the latitude and the skills to go do amazing stuff. And that's how the AC is going to work, because we've got the new Conservative Party, because we've got so many talented people. I'm just going to give them a chance to contribute as best they can. And the last one is know yourself. It's all about you. Now, if you do those 5 things, you will inspire tremendous loyalty from people. They're going to love working for you. You'll attract them like a magnet, and you never have to chase good people ever again.
Well, that's good. That's a good answer, Dean. Someone else asked, I haven't even gotten to the super chats yet. I'm getting a few now. Bosi, are you saying he has confirmation from the Italian government? He is not entitled to Italian citizenship. I don't know what they're talking about.
Who's not entitled to Italian citizenship?
I don't know. Were you talking? I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'm not sure who they're referring to. But okay, let's go down and see. Maybe they're talking about your dad? I don't know. Let's have a look. Does Riccardo believe that the Palestinians have a right to exist in their own state, free from Israeli occupation and persecution? That is from Just Saying, and he's very hung up on that subject matter. I told you about some of my audience before the live stream started, and he's one of them. Always.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Everyone's allowed an opinion. Everyone's absolutely allowed an opinion.
Of course, I agree. Anyway, yeah. So, do you have an answer to the Palestinian right?
Yes, I'm going to knock over the one question that nobody's been able to solve for the last long time. But here's step 1.
Okay.
The Palestinians, if they renounce the destruction of Israel as one of their goals, that's a good first step. Because how can you give status to a country whose sole goal is the destruction of the people that they want to live in? So no. So as soon as the Palestinians reject the call for the destruction of the Israeli state, then we can start negotiations. But until that happens, forget it. It's nuts.
Okay, cool. I don't know whether he'll like or dislike that answer, but that's your answer. All right. The Sydney Institute for Christian Studies wants to ask, or has asked, I don't know if they were watching at the beginning because this question was already answered, but I'm happy to ask it again. Thank you guys for the super chat. Why did you get into politics? Was there a tipping point for you? Keep up the great work, both of you. Yay! That's also kind of a compliment to me. But anyway,
quick answer.
Give a quick answer, because
very quick answer. My experience with the family court revealed to me that the government was using its laws as a weapon to beat up on the private citizens in many, many ways. And so I decided that since I retired from the army, the country still needed saving, so I got stuck in.
He's like our own Superman. All right, let's have a look. What other? Let's have a look. Riccardo, who is the PM receiving advice from the Come Free speech? What the hell? What does that mean? Kern free speech. I don't know. I don't know what this person. I don't know what they're talking about. All right. Did anyone see the outstanding interview with the Oz Conservatives? Oh, that's not a question. All right. I think we're done. I think we've literally hit every single subject. Let me go to my notes just in case I've missed anything, because I don't want to lose. Have a look. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've asked every question I wanted to ask of you. Well, so you think in 2022? No. Australia will be back with a conservative government, and that your party will lead the way.
Now, 2022 will have lower house and upper house members, both House of Reps and Senate.
Okay.
We won't be anywhere near government yet. That's a long way down the track, but we're going to have representation. This is the beginning is ended, and now we're at the beginning of the end. We're moving in, so we will have representation. And it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, but it's going to take everybody out there to take that red pill, and it's going to be hard. Look, I understand this. The truth is incredibly unpalatable. But take that red pill, have a look around, see what's going on, gird your loins and get ready for a fight, because they're not going to go down quietly.
Exactly right. I agree with you, and I'm really excited for what's to come, because so many people out there just wake up every day and go, what's the point? I have no hope here. We're in a shithole. Like, so it's really good that people like you, like Anning, and I think it's great that you want to bring all conservatives together at some capacity, whether you join parties or not. But it all sounds really positive. It sounds like you really have a game plan. It's really exciting what's to come, I think.
It's what I do.
It is indeed. Well, let me know when you come down to Melbourne, because I'd love to, I don't know, just have a coffee with you, or just sit in the audience or whatever. Like, it'd be amazing.
Okay.
Okay, so one more question was, what is Riccardo's Instagram account? Oh, I didn't add it to the. You do have one?
No, not yet.
No Instagram account. All right, I'm gonna stop the live, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. By the way, all of the links are in the description box below. So if you want to see what Riccardo is all about, his Facebook and his website Lionheart is in the description box below. My PayPal and is also there if you guys want to donate. And next week will be probably one of the most emotional YouTube interviews I'm ever going to do, guys, because it will be with a white South African farmer. He's not someone well known, just someone who is really down on his luck. They contacted me, and of course I said yes. And I've got that particular person's PayPal account. So next week I would like it to be a live stream where you guys donate to him so that he can help the people in his community, because they are getting killed. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to stop the broadcast.